Hello, 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 and welcome to the show. We are wrestling with entertainment, the only audio experience on the web today. The trusted choice for interviewing all your favorite wrestlers every Tuesday and Wednesday, previewing and reviewing the latest shows from WWE, AEW, New Japan, and everything in between every Saturday, and giving us some bonus content on Mondays, sometimes. Uh, I am, of course, your host, that guy, James J., alongside the leader of Squaw Squad, Kaliko Yachts, who is mute. Yes, Kaliko.
How am I mute? To squash or not to squash? That is the question.
And the American Scooter Dust.
Hey.
And as you can hear, we're outside with the crickets. It's a very chill, relaxed wrestling wit for today. Even though it's in the middle of the daytime. Um,
I'm chilling with the fireflies right now. I'm ready.
oh yeah.
Don't come at me, Wyatt Six. Don't come at me.
We are wrestling with our top 10 matches that we have seen live in living color, in person matches. Um, there weren't necessarily any restrictions to this, other than you had to be there to see it live. Um, I didn't have too much of a problem with compiling a list. I kind of went with whatever kind of first came to mind, because I felt like if it came to my mind first, then it obviously had big impact on how I viewed the show, and obviously, if I had to maybe go back and remember something, then maybe it wasn't that memorable to begin with. That's just how I did it. That being said, what about you and what about Kaliko and Scooter? How did you compile your list?
Well, I can only speak for myself that I went so down as we went off the air a couple of weeks ago. I went so deep down the rabbit hole of pictures of shows that I went to and matches that I brought up, and they're like, "Wait a minute, this fucking happened?" Because keep in mind, a lot of house shows were popping off, and I got a wormhole of Alberto Del Rio versus Brock Lesnar, and I'm just telling you right now, that's when I was like, I need to have a cutoff for this. So my cutoff was and it only seems fair, and from 2011 to now, considering those were the brunt of the matches that I think changed the landscape of modern wrestling.
Scooter?
I mean, the first actual live wrestling event I saw was not a WWE. It was actually, I can't remember if it was the UWF or the AWF.
Ooh.
Out in Staten Island, where Captain Lou, they had Sunny Beach, where if you watch the Dark Side of the Ring on Herb Abrams, Sunny Beach is a UWF guy. I met them all in the locker room. I met Captain Lou. Greg Valentine was on the show. I believe Sergeant Slaughter was on the show as well. It was a whole thing. I don't remember the card at all. My cutoff, believe it or not, was from January 1997 onwards.
See, that's funny you say your first show wasn't WWE because neither was mine. It was USWA. And at the time, it was a face Jerry Lawler and Jeff Jarrett going against the Moondogs when they were tearing it up back down there. So that's how far I was like, yo, I could go forever with this shit.
Well, let's get into it. Let's start off with my number 10. And my number 10 is the 2013 Royal Rumble match. Yes, I agree, Chucky. Um, it was the first time I've ever seen the Royal Rumble in person. Um, and as most people know, I'm very much a Chris Jericho guy, or I used to be before he went to AEW. Always been a big fan of his, and when he made his entrance for that show, the roof came off that place. And just being a Royal Rumble in general, the unpredictability of it, kind of ended flat with John Cena winning, but everything up to that point was just in fantastic shit, and just an enjoyable show, enjoyable and eventful show, um, and that is why it is my number 10. Kaliko.
All right, my number 10, and it's gonna shock a lot of people, but it's because of what happened afterwards in the crowd interaction during this match. And that would be Charlotte versus Ronda Rousey Survivor Series 2018, because of the simple fact that no one liked Charlotte, but all of them hated Ronda. And it was the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And to see someone who essentially was for 30 minutes down the road get booed and get chances, you deserve it, while you're getting your ass handed to you with a chair, it kind of just showed the dichotomy of just because you here don't mean you one of us. And that was just felt through the LA arena. So yeah, number 10, Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair, Survivor Series 2018.
Doodle.
Okay. Now I'm going back all the way to the first WWE show I ever saw, and it was the same night as the first WCW sold out pay-per-view, and this was just after the no, it was before the Royal Rumble. Matches on this card included a main event of The Undertaker versus Psycho Sid, Vader defeating Bret Hart cleanly, Goldust versus Steve Austin, Rocky Maivia versus Sal Sincere, and I'm trying to remember. Yep. Okay. Yes, I did find it. Yes, here it is. Yeah, the Godwins against Bob Holly and Owen Hart. Triple H versus Jake Roberts for the Intercontinental title. And no, the actual main event was Shawn Michaels Mankind for the title. But the match I'm putting at number 10 is something that you never saw happen at a house show. And number 10 is a tag team match. The Nation of Domination, Crush and Farouk, against Ahmed Johnson and Savio Vega. What's so special about this? Savio Vega turned heel and joined the Nation during this match. And that, to me, right there, told me I was witnessing something special. And I mean, that's all. That's all I can really. That's all I can really say, since house shows, a lot of the storyline stuff doesn't exactly get propelled forward. But prior to this, I'd always wondered, you know, had something like this ever happened at a house show? And I was there for, I think, the first time it happened in person.
Are you done?
Yeah, yes, I am finished.
Okay. Alright. So, this is definitely going to come out of left field for some people. People might not actually know this. People might be shocked by this. But my number 9 is a street fight between Tommy Dreamer and Kevin Steen. I've I haven't I wasn't at a lot of independent shows. This would actually be my first independent show that I went to, Wrestling Reunion 6. And obviously I knew who Tommy Dreamer was, but I didn't know who Kevin Steen was. And Kevin Steen, being the guy that we all know him for being, won me over that night. And he was literally the most memorable character on the whole entire card. And keep in mind, this is the same a card that has the Young Bucks, El Generico, the Great Sasuke, the Steiner brothers, and the New Age Outlaws on it. So, and I walked away from that match in love with Kevin Steen, and have been a fan of his since that match, the first time I ever saw him. So, going from seeing him in that match and then seeing him headline WrestleMania, it only makes looking back on that match even sweeter. Just the charisma, his trash talking. The guy literally did not shut up the whole entire match wrestling Tommy Dreamer. It was a good competitive match as well. So, for all of the reasons that I mentioned, that is my number 9. Kaliko. Kaliko, you're muted. If you can hear us, we cannot hear you. Oh, did we lose Kaliko? Yep, we lost Kaliko. I respawned, and now he's respawning. Yep, respawn. Kaliko.
Bring me back, god damn it. I was sitting there talking. See, now I feel it. All this time I was talking shit about James, and that shit happened to me. That's called karma, motherfucker. Anyway. That's called karma. Ooh. Ooh. Anyways, number 9 for me, it actually happened at an NXT live show. And it was a match in which this was probably the match of the night. And it was Adam Cole versus Tyler Bate.
Ooh.
This match was a great match of style. and it was a young and up and coming Tyler Bate versus a known Adam Cole, but not NXT champion PWI top wrestler Adam Cole.
Hmm.
And when I say they tore the house down, they tore the house down. And in a stunning upset, Tyler Bate defeated Adam Cole,
Interesting.
which made me think, Tyler Bate might be the next big guy, right? Like,
Big strong boy.
right. But this was also in the height of the Undisputed Era kind of doing their thing at the time. That match, it was them versus the War Raiders in that show. Velveteen Dream went against Dominic Dijakovic. You know,
Dominic
Dijakovic.
Dijakovic.
There you go.
Dominic Dijakovic.
Dominic Dijakovic, yes. And the main event was, oh no, this was also Kairi Sane. Kairi Sane was there.
She was a pirate.
She was the pirate princess. That elbow was insane. The main event was, if I'm not mistaken, it was Tommaso Ciampa. It was the Ciampa, Aleister Black, Johnny Gargano triple love triangle, which to me, I think was probably the best NXT story that they've ever done. Point blank. Period. But yeah, this was also during the time NXT was actually touring American cities, and it just showed itself as like the super in demand thing, touring city to city. So yes, number 9, Tyler Bate versus Adam Cole, baby.
Scooter.
Okay. So, my number 9 is kind of tied for 2 matches at the same show. And this again was a house show, Uniondale at the Nassau Coliseum. First, it's a Falls Count Anywhere match between Mankind and Vader.
Hmm.
Vader was on the tail end of his WWE run, and basically by the end of the year, he'd be out. In fact, he'd be out by November when he'd go back to All Japan. So seeing this was just a bit, special, knowing that Vader didn't have much time left in the company. The other match, and other notable matches for this card, the main event was a triple threat match for the WWF title: Steve Austin, Kane, Undertaker, special referee Pat Patterson. However, the match that stands out is a steel cage 8-man tag match between DX and the Nation. Here's the thing. This wasn't a traditional cage match. In fact, it was under War Games rules. And again, I find myself at a show where something out of the ordinary happens. Somebody would enter the cage every 2 minutes. escaping was not a means of winning, and the match could not end until everybody was in the ring. It was, simplified war games, but war games nonetheless. So if this is a little tidbit of history that I don't think they did this ever again on a house show, and that's why it was so memorable to me. That and the number of women Triple H got to flash the crowd. And with that, I am finished.
Okay. Well, that brings us to my number 8, and that brings us to Double or Nothing 2022, Darby Allin versus Kyle O'Reilly. When you think Darby Allin matches, you don't think of, a technical masterpiece match. Um, this match wasn't a technical masterpiece, but it did bring out something new and different in Darby Allin that we've never seen. And, you know, Kyle O'Reilly is arguably one of the best technical wrestlers um, in modern history, like Bret Hart almost esque. And for him and for them to have a technical match on an AEW show that is, balls to the wall, um, it stuck out more. And if I'm being honest, I like these kinds of matches. And being there, watching it live, it didn't disappoint. It was an incredible match. It was a good match. Arguably one of a match that's severely overlooked. But maybe a match people should maybe go look at again and say, huh, AEW can put on good matches every now and again. And that's why it is my number 8. Kaliko.
Ooh, number 8. Number 8 for me is actually a Ring of Honor Supercard match in which Cody Rhodes versus Kenny Omega. When I say that place was bumping with the story, it was bumping with a story. And this was, to me, the best storytelling that the Young Bucks has ever been involved with. Due to the fact it was Kenny versus Cody, whose allegiances to who as far as the elite, and the story that Kenny Omega was able to tell with Cody, and it showed that Cody could do it. He just needed the time to find himself. And I think that this story angle was the beginning of his run coming back to the WWE. Because to me, I think he understood the flippy shit, but he also was the old school guy in the room. And when the Young Bucks kicked Kenny, and instead, when they were aiming for Cody and they kicked Kenny, everything changed. You could hear a pin drop when that happened. And Cody got the win over Kenny Omega. And even though he never really capitalized from it, but it just showed the story in which I think that was probably the most the Bullet Club had mattered in a minute. And that match in New Orleans, WrestleMania weekend. It was one of the best matches during that weekend that was not WWE related. So yeah, Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega, Ring of Honor Supercard 2018.
Scooter?
All right. So there's there's quite a little bit uh, of stuff I went to. Again, I'm gonna come back to the Nassau Coliseum, uh, and you might think I'm going in chronological order, but I'm not, because the one after this will have taken place uh, 8 months before this. But considering that this was essentially WCW's last show in New York,
Wow.
uh, Monday Nitro, September 25th, 2000. Uh, and and it's not because it was the greatest match I ever saw. It is because of the title change that happened that night. That is the night Vince Russo became WCW World Heavyweight Champion in what they had called a cage to heat match, where I'm pretty sure Goldberg speared Vince Russo out of the cage and thus won. And then this goes into essentially the that last minute restart. Um, where again they were trying for the New Blood versus the Millionaires Club and whatnot, but knowing what was going on behind the scenes and everything, seeing Vince Russo, who, even though he was from New York, was absolutely hated, defeating Booker T, the second black WCW World Champion ever. It was, again, it's a moment in pro wrestling history that's just forever etched in my mind. And I think, yeah, moving on.
Alright. That brings me to my number 7. And that brings us to the G1 special in Long Beach. I think this was 2015, 2016. Uh, this was the first time New Japan fully came to America, really embraced, and I never it back then it kind of was an export legitimately. Like I never felt so much in a New Japan event than I was at that those two events, because it was a 2 night thing. Um, I mean, the first night I was fourth row from the ring. Um, the very first match I caught Jay Briscoe's bandana from the ring, that which I still have. Cody Rhodes wrestled Okada. Bullet Club when it was the Young Bucks. The Tungans. Bad Luck Fale was still there. Marty Skull was uncancelled at that point. Um, and out of all the incredible matches that were on both nights, the one that does stick out is Kenny Omega versus Ishii, the last match of the whole entire event. For the IWGP United States Championship, um, first and foremost, Ishii had heat with me because night one, I legitimately spent over $100 on Los Ingobernables merchandise, and Ishii beat Naito literally in the first match. So I was already more or less pro Kenny Omega if I wasn't already. Um, and then Kenny Omega, Ishii having a banger, which we knew they were going to. And then that last moment, Kenny Omega with the United States Championship with legitimately all of Bullet Club. I don't think there was another event in New Japan history where all the members of Bullet Club were all in the same building, celebrating with each other. In that moment of them picking them up, doing the whole group huddle, too sweet. It was just too sweet of a moment, and that is why it is my number seven. Kaliko.
Ooh, I remember that. I was there too. Like, and you know what's funny? I took a picture because you remember where you could see New Japan, where you could see them step up to the ring from the side angle,
Yeah.
right? So, like, right then I met the Briscoes. That's when I met the Briscoes. Took a picture, but I snuck right over to catch Kenny Omega right before he entered, where he had his head down. I took a picture, popped that on Instagram. I was like, I never got to see this guy wrestle in person, and this dude is the fucking man, and he liked my Instagram post. I'll never forget that. That's what I got out of it. Plus, New Japan don't believe in Rise and Rose, but that's a whole other ordeal. Um, in this instance, for number seven, it's going to be a little bit different. And the reason I say that because this was probably the first time I'm going to put the entire card on this list. Because there were so many bangers and the crowd was just on it from start to finish. And that is NXT TakeOver Dallas. And that card was just hot from start to finish. American Alpha versus the Revival. Apollo Crews, I mean, but Bailey versus Asuka. I mean, I'm just saying, they were cheering for Apollo Crews. That tells you everything you need to know. I think it was Apollo Crews and Barry Corbin. I got to remember. But I remember vividly American Alpha finally beating the Revival for the tag titles. Asuka choking out Bailey, and you could hear a pin drop. As a matter of fact, I still remember to this day this little girl right next to me just crying her ass off, just bawling like it's nobody's business. Sami Zayn versus Shinsuke Nakamura. When I say the fucking roof was off of that place, the fucking roof was off of that place. It showed that even though people at NXT were WWE, but they also had their ear to the international wrestling game. And that, I mean, that just showed you that they understood who people were, right? Of course, Samoa Joe versus Finn Balor in the main event. This was the second NXT takeover for WrestleMania weekend, because in WrestleMania at 31 they did one, but it was untaped. This was the first one where they actually did it on the network as a live event, and that to me changed the perspective of NXT forever. as a brand because granted, yeah, it's easy to do it when you're in Florida because they had those couple takeovers there. But I think that is what blew Takeover to be a national scaled brand. That match, that night with those cards were just like surreal, and the buzz from that place that night after was just crazy. So yeah, I'm just nominating the whole NXT Takeover Dallas. 32, of course.
Scooter?
My number 6, the 2000 Royal Rumble, but not the Royal Rumble itself. The tag team tables elimination match, the Hardy Boys versus the Dudleys. I don't think that I have to explain any further. It was mwah. Uh, I think that was the true indication that wrestling had finished evolving for the time into what it was going to be.
Okay. That brings us to my number 6. And it is once again a New Japan event. But it is a little different. It is a live event that took place at the Globe Theater in Los Angeles. The match was Tetsuya Naito, Bushi, and Shingo Takagi, LIJ versus Jay White, Chase Owens, and Gato, Bullet Club from November of 2019. It was a good match. LAJ won. All happy, good time. And then Shingo Takagi got the mic and he was like, "We won, but I don't talk. Naito talks." And I just remember that so vividly. And Naito, being the not give a shit Naito that he is, just took the mic, thanked everybody for coming. Buenas noches, Los Angeles, and we are Los Ingobernables de Japan. If you haven't if you haven't felt a D Japan in person, it is as electric and as feel good as it sounds. Literally, I did not stop smiling the whole ride back home. Going to that show, it didn't matter if all the matches were drizzling shit before that. Just the simple fact that I got to do the road call with Tetsuya and Naito and say D Japan made it a worldwide experience, and that is why it is my number 6. Kaliko.
Ooh. My number 6. Number 6 for me is mainly for the significance of what it has as far as society. It is Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 37 2021 Tampa Bay. The reason that that's its home is because this was like the first rollout of WWE doing a show after the pandemic. And it just showed you how much important or how important a crowd is when it comes to professional wrestling and this thing that we all love. That day, I still never forget that day because it was the first big show at that in Tampa. It's raining like crazy. Hella layover. Everybody don't know if it's gonna happen because of the storm. But yet everybody was so hopeful in the sense that they thought that this was going to happen. And when it was time for WrestleMania, even though everyone was kind of spaced out and kind of had their own little distancing thing, when it was time for WrestleMania, they put on a show for the people, and it just showed like this big societal sigh of relief as we tried to get some kind of normalcy back after something as so tragic as COVID. So yeah, being there, and this was like the first of the 2 night WrestleManias in person as well. So
Right.
it was just a lot of history being made, and yeah, being there in person, it was just something to behold and actually be a part of that history and that return to normalcy.
Scooter?
Okay. Now, apologies. I thought previously was my number 6. That was my number 7. My number 6 is going to be an entire card, and
Yes.
and
Yes.
and it's gonna be and you know what? I'm not gonna take up 2 spots with 2 cards, so I'm gonna make this a tie. Simply because they were back-to-back Big Four pay-per-views uh, in New York. Um, First, the honorable mention is SummerSlam 2002,
Oh, yeah.
uh, and the return of Shawn Michaels. Uh, However, the one I'm placing on the list is Survivor Series 2002,
Mm.
the first ever Elimination Chamber. The come on, Jeff, God damn it. A lot of people don't realize this about this pay per view, but it is one of the few events in WWE history where every title that was on the line changed hands.
Yeah.
And again, seeing that the start of something that would become part of pro wrestling history, you just knew that you were witnessing something great.
All right. Have you done?
Yep.
Okay. That brings me to my number 5. And it was the last stop on the Brock Lesnar Goes to Hell tour. And that is Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker, Hell in a Cell 2015. Um, Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker. Um, their 2002 Hell in a Cell really left an impression on me. Always really loved that match. And to get to see The Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar live in Hell in a Cell, yeah, that was a sight to behold on itself. And, keep in mind this is the PG era where there is no blood in Hell in a Cell. And they fucking bled. and, and Brock Lesnar was as brutal of a monster as Brock Lesnar is. Um, it, between out of all of the PG era Hell in a Cell matches, this is definitely, I would say, number one in those matches. Maybe a close second would be Jeff Hardy versus Randy Orton, but that's another story. Um, Also, knowing that I haven't seen Undertaker a lot live, so the last time I had seen Undertaker wrestle before this, prior to this, was WrestleMania 31. And for everybody that was at that show, that fucking sun would not go down. And when you want to experience The Undertaker, it has to be pitch black. And we got to see Undertaker in all his glory do the entrance, 100% authentic Undertaker. And just, even more significance to that match, it would be Undertaker's last ever match in Los Angeles at the Staples Center. Which, makes it a little bit more bittersweet. Um, Also, he did even though he didn't win, he still did the Shakespeare thing, and got carried out by the Wyatts. That started his next rivalry. So, there was a lot that happened in that match. There was a lot that just happened in that event in general. It was good times. It was definitely significant to me, and that's why it's my number five. Kaliko. Kaliko. Um, you're
Hello?
yeah,
Hello?
yeah, you're here. We hear you.
That's what I was going. Okay, there we go. So we getting into the heavy hitters. Let's see, number five. Number five for me, and I'm just gonna throw it out there because in this case, this match stole the show in an otherwise long ass WrestleMania, and I always brings this match up, and it'll never lose my mind, and that is the triple threat match between Charlotte, Becky, and Sasha at WrestleMania 32. In a WrestleMania in which it started off with the surprise with the Zack Ryder winning, and people were on board for it. In a WrestleMania where you saw Brock Lesnar kind of be uninterested because you knew he was going to the UFC right after. In a night where people were kind of doled out by the time Roman versus Triple H happened because it was freaking 7 hours long at that time. You have a match in which it literally stole the show between three girls and the introduction of the new women's championship, which signified the ending of the Divas era. And they picked the three right people to kind of showcase the fact that it's actually going back to the aspects of wrestling. Not saying that dudes didn't respect the women of wrestling, but there were a lot of bra and panty matches and we all appreciated it. But also a battle cry for women being taken seriously with storylines came about, and I believe this match was the culmination of it making it happen. And now we have this new. It started a generation of actual female wrestlers who looked good, but also could wrestle their ass off. And this was the start of it. This was the genesis of that that new generation. So, number five, triple threat match: Sasha Banks, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, the new women's championship era starts.
Scooter?
My number 5 was one that I saw on a vacation down at Williamsburg, Virginia, and it was the night after SummerSlam 2005. And here I'm thinking I'm going to get to see Hulk Hogan on Raw. And no. Nope, nope, nope. What I do see, though, is my number 5 in the main event in Hampton, Virginia at the Hampton Coliseum. John Cena versus Chris Jericho for the WWE Championship. If Jericho did not win, he was fired. Jericho lost. He got counted out. He got carried out, I should say. And that was the last we saw of Jericho until Save Us Y2J. And then of course the next version of the feud between John Cena and Kurt Angle began, and the rest after that is history. All right, over to you.
All right. That brings us to my number 4. And that would be from WrestleMania 31, Sting versus Triple H. Just arguably a very emotionally fueled match. You have you have the same generation, but from 2 different companies. You have Sting's first ever match in WWE, his only WrestleMania match. Just a really, it was a good match, and then they added to it by bringing in the Generation X, bringing in the NWO. It was a clusterfuck. It was gaga, and I was there for literally all of it. and everybody in that arena seemed to be with it as well. It was just an emotional roller coaster of high after. Oh, well, you thought that this was it? Well, here's some more. I think that was the last time that Scott Hall ever got physical in WWE as well. It was Kevin Nash got inducted into Hall of Fame that year. Just a whirlwind of emotions. Maybe not the best guy won, but it didn't necessarily take away from the moment. It was just awesome to see all of those people all in the ring at the same time. You want to talk about end of an era? Yeah, I think that was closer to end of an era than even Undertaker Triple H at 28 was. That's saying a lot because there was a lot of great matches on 31. Arguably one of the better WrestleManias, definitely a top 5 WrestleMania. And for it to capture, the imagination and the emotion, yeah, it doesn't get much better than that. And that's why it's my number 4. Kalika.
Ooh, I see your WrestleMania 31, and I go WrestleMania 30, Daniel Bryan versus Triple H. When I say the tensions was high in that match, the tensions was high in that match. in my opinion, probably one of the best opening WrestleMania matches of all time. Um, Considering the stipulation, considering the stakes, considering that it was the people pushing Daniel Bryan and getting ultimately sick of like the WWE shit and just wanting to see their person be at the top. And Triple H being that gatekeeper with the corporation angle. It just was an uberly well executed match. It felt like soccer because everybody was on every whim's move. Uh, Ultimately, Daniel Bryan got the win and I went on to win the title. But that was the beginning of and I always have this theory. Maybe that was the beginning of Triple H starting to see how to get the crowd into these longer term storytelling. Because keep in mind that was a culmination of a year in which I have that. I will get to that in my top countdown as well. But yeah, that match was like a top match with crowd involvement, with the stakes, and it felt like the changing of a new guard once Bryan kind of pushed through the hump. So yes, number 4, Daniel Bryan Triple H WrestleMania 30. To me, the best opening match at WrestleMania.
Scooter?
Okay. So, my number 4. I don't think this is going to be of any surprise to anybody, but the 2008 Royal Rumble match. Yes, this was the night where John Cena shocked the world, literally entering at number 30 after we thought he still had months and months to go on his injury. And not only that, he comes back and he wins. He wins the whole damn thing, and he goes on to. Well, actually, technically, he kind of wastes his title shot after that, but
A whole other story.
but that's a whole another story. Also, to see Snuka and Piper, um, in the ring and go at each other, which would set the stage for WrestleMania 25 and everything. But yeah, John Cena in the 2008 Royal Rumble match is my number 4. Over to you.
Fun fact: that show was the show that I turned heel on John Cena. I was like, I'm over Super Cena.
I'm over this shit.
Yeah. Uh, that brings us to my number 3. For anybody that watched our top 10 women's matches, my number 1 was Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks from NXT Unbreakable. A couple year later, in October of 2021, big time Becky Lynch would wrestle Sasha Banks on SmackDown. It was the go home show to the Crown Jewel event in Saudi Arabia. And fun fact, it was called Super SmackDown because it actually went head to head with AEW Rampage when Rampage was actually considered a threat at that time. Um, and yeah, like I said, I was such a big fan of the match between Sasha Banks and Becky at the time. And to see them actually wrestle live, against each other in a competitive match that got a lot of time. Um, it was good shit, and it was a competitive match. It was a good match. There was a little bit of controversy, a little bit of gaga. Always appreciated. That whole show as a whole was just fantastic. Ed's cut a banger of a promo. Brock Lesnar and Roman had their contract signing. And then later that night, they recorded Tribute to the Troops, which featured Roman Reigns versus Shinsuke Nakamura.
Yep.
Which was an absolute banger as well. It's unfortunately a match that only people that were there saw. Um, but yeah, Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks. Great match. Very invested in it. Number three. Kaliko.
Oof. Oh man, these are getting tight. My number three. It only took 16 suplexes to beat that ass, but beat that ass, it happened, and it was John Cena versus Brock Lesnar, SummerSlam 2014. Um, this match, literally every man above the age of 25 in this building was cheering the death of Superman. Like, it literally felt like Superman died. Because you remember we had this whole Super Cena theory,
Yeah.
and everyone kind of felt like it was just Super Cena theory, but Superman died that night. And I mean, Brock Lesnar whooped his ass from pillar to post. Every man was cheering. There was literally, and I don't know how I get stuck with kids, but there was a kid right next to me, just Cena geared out. I don't know why I get all these kids with gear, just bawling his eyes out as he just sees this dude get skull drugged and skull drugged and skull drugged. And keep in mind, this was 2014, which was the beginning right after he beat the streak. So it kind of put him in this uberly unbeatable atmosphere, right? And I think that just signified the changing in the perception of Brock as just a guy who was just on a roster to now this guy is, to get to the Father, you got to get through him. And he pretty much showed that why that night when he just, I mean, if Cena didn't die, he definitely had concussions. So, yeah, that match. And this is how I know that match meant a lot. I was reading a blog afterwards, and a guy in the thread said, I was sitting around the house doing cartwheels, bug naked, high-fiving my cats as I see John Cena get his ass handed to him. That just shows you how crazy that was. Also, that was the last SummerSlam in Los Angeles, which was a good run.
Yep.
And yeah, that was the last match of it too. Just utter ass whooping, unlike anyone has ever seen. So yes, three, Brock Lesnar.
Yes, number two.
Defeating John Cena.
Scudo.
My number three, ironically, is going to be from the SummerSlam that followed that, as the next SummerSlams would be at the Barclays Center. And as soon as he had debuted at the Royal Rumble, AJ Styles Yeah, we were all waiting for the feud with Cena, and both were kind of doing nothing as Styles had just come off uh, the end of his title chase with Roman. Uh, but my number three, SummerSlam 2016, AJ Styles, John Cena, the Dream Match. Uh, an absolutely incredible match. That again, it will stay in my mind forever. And then I'll beat up John Cena.
All right. That will bring me to my number two. And this might come to a shocker to some, considering how WWE heavy I've been. But my number two comes from TNA from 2009, Bound for Glory. And it was the Ultimate X match for the X Division Championship. Amazing Red, Alex Shelley, Chris Sabin, Chris Daniels, Homicide, and Suicide. Um, Keep in mind that this these types of matches weren't necessarily on TV that often. It was somewhat revolutionary to see, the flippy shit. And this match was all of that and more. It was all the high spots. It kept you captivated through the whole thing. There was a big, scary drop between Daniels and Suicide. It was the first match of the show, so it got people hot real quick. And, honestly, that whole show was just a banger. Um, Out of all of the events that I've ever been to, Bound for Glory 2009, from start to finish, was one of my favorites that I look back on really fondly. And, like I said, it may have just been, a match, not necessarily storyline, but it was revolutionary at the time as AEW was just a twinkle in Tony Khan's nuts at this point. And Ring of Honor was not necessarily popping off. It was people were looking at TNA, and guys like Amazing Red, Motor City, Suicide, Chris Daniels were creating the way indie wrestling is what they're doing now back then. So all of that is the reason why it's my number two. All right, Kaliko.
Well, my number two, and I mean, honestly, I could put these two. It's good. It's practically a tie because it was the same night. Both matches were the same night, and both matches had like super emotional input from everyone. And this was SummerSlam 2013, the double main event, which was CM Punk versus Brock Lesnar and Daniel Bryan versus John Cena. When I say that this match had the biggest like when I say the emotional drop between that CM Punk having his match, then the filler match, then the Daniel Bryan and Cena match, the contrast and emotion between those three matches were just crazy. The CM Punk Lesnar match, honestly, when that was a falls count anywhere or a no DQ match, I was like, what the hell they're gonna do? And they just came and tore that motherfucker up. Honestly, keep in mind, this was the first time in a while, like Punk had Lesnar looking vulnerable. Like he could actually beat him. And if it wasn't for Paul Heyman, his old handy friend, who cost him the match, and yeah, so on and so forth. And then you add in the John Cena, Daniel Bryan angle, in which it was the genesis of Daniel Bryan being and belonging on that stage, considering the fact that, I mean, as much as we hated Cena, he wrestled that bitch with a fucked up arm like it's nobody's business. Daniel Bryan was literally handpicked because it just seemed like he didn't belong, and the people were all over it. Um, when he won it, it just felt like it was uber jubilation. And then when Randy Orton cashed the bitch in, it felt like uber. I mean, it. When you talk about people pissed leaving, it was the highest level of pissing. so, so what up? Like the emotions, because seeing Punk lose and then Daniel win and then Daniel lose, and it was just like, oh my god! Like I literally, the funny part about that is I could not sleep that night. I could not sleep that night because I was literally like, what the fuck? I had a hotel room literally around the corner from the fucking stairs, but I just couldn't go to sleep. I fucking couldn't sleep that night. I was just gone, done. Mine like was gone all night, all day. Like fuck, Daniel Bryan lost it. Fuck, Punk lost. And it was just like, yo, it put you in that spiral, man. So yeah, number two, uh, double main event time in this one as CM Punk, Brock Lesnar, Daniel Bryan versus Johnson.
Scooter.
Now there's a lot of places I will travel for a uh, for a show, and one of course, one of those places is Boston, and I believe my final two are going to actually come from Boston, but the second one is is memorable for me because what it would lead to. Uh, and this was March 3rd, 2009. Uh, at this Raw, they had filmed uh, the promo for Access and film your own entrance. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and this was also when Jericho confronted Jimmy Snuka. Uh, the main event was John Cena and Edge for the World Heavyweight title. But on this night, there was a debate about who would face The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25. By the way, I also have to mention Triple H's promo against Randy Orton, where he literally says, "I'm gonna break your fucking neck." Um, my number two is Vladimir Kozlov versus Shawn Michaels.
Mm.
You're not gonna see a lot of. Vladimir Kozlov be in a lot of people's top tens. I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
Well, there's a reason for this
I know,
because
I know.
not only that, not only of what it got Shawn Michaels, but also the fact that Kozlov didn't get a single move of offense in. And I always remember when something like that happens because it very rarely does. So that is my number two.
All right, and that brings me to my number one, which was, you know, you guys made said that you put the whole event as you know the number. It's hard to pick one match from this event because there were a lot of bangers and it was just a very memorable night. And my number one was Kaliko's number two, and that is SummerSlam 2013.
2013. It was a good card, man. I
Yeah,
can't. I can't.
so keep in mind, this is the first time I've been on the floor for a WWE paid preview. I'm
Oh,
literally,
yes.
I'm right there. I'm on the floor, right behind, well, not right behind the announcer's booth, but that's where I was on that side. And how does that show fucking start? With the Ring of Fire match.
Fire match. Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
there is any match you want to see on the floor live, then it's a Ring of Fire match. My face was literally burning from the flames
Burning. Yes.
because the
Everybody's
flames
face was burning.
it was so the flames were so intense, and it was just to see that so close was just incredible. Um, then you have Cody Rhodes versus Damian Sandow when Cody was just starting to pop off, and you kind of saw him become, a world title contender. And then obviously, he dropped to just being Stardust after that, which was disappointing. Which is another story completely. Um, and then you have the match of the night, which was Brock fucking Lesnar versus CM Punk. I, other than that Ultimate X match that I mentioned, I have never been so emotionally drained after a match from how the roller coaster that they put us through. Just going back and forward, fall after fall, move after move. Brock Lesnar literally came where my section was, and he literally looked like the monster, and it was so incredibly scary. uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was just. It is my all-time favorite match that I have seen live. And then you go to the main event, like Kaliko said. Daniel Bryan versus John Cena. Great match. The end of John Cena as we know him as Super Cena. He never really had a major run afterwards. That was pretty much it. Um, and again, I was on the floor, and you see Daniel Bryan get his hand raised. The confetti comes down. There's literally confetti coming down on my head. And it's just a magical moment. And then you hear Randy Orton's song. And then 2 seconds later,
Yeah.
Randy Orton is the world champion. And I didn't necessarily mind it as much as other people, but yeah, people were legit pissed. So much so that literally the row after ahead of me, was the WWE chairs, the event chairs. My chair was an event chair. It was just a normal chair. That's where it cut off. I pat the guy on the back from the seats in front of me, and I said, "Hey, do you want to sell your chair?" He gives me the most disgusted, far-sighted look I've ever seen in my life, and he just says, "Take them." And he drew his tickets at me, and he left. And I got two SummerSlam event chairs that night, free of charge. So that
Wait a minute. You still have one of those chairs?
I have two of those chairs.
I will buy that chair for you. When I said I've been looking for that, that is literally my holy grail chair.
Well, we can talk about that off. But yeah, they came, they cut the chairs off from, and I got two event chairs free of charge because Randy Orton was the world champion, and
Motherfucker.
I didn't necessarily mind Randy being champion. I kind of liked Randy at that point. So for me, it was it was an incredible night, one that I would not soon forget. Definitely experiencing a WWE event on the floor is something else, and that is why it's my number one. All right, Kaliko.
Oh my god, I've been looking for that fucking chair for so goddamn long. Whole time you've had two of them. Oh yeah, we talking. Anyway, anyways, my number one, man, this was hands down the hardest thing to pick, because you got so many matches that brought emotion into it. The only thing that beat Daniel Bryan getting fucked like that was CM Punk getting fucked like that, which is what happened at SummerSlam 2011. Los Angeles, California. This match was significant. John Cena versus CM Punk. This was the shot of fucking cocaine, for lack of a better word, that professional wrestling needed. This was well after the Money in the Bank match in which Punk and Cena put on a banger. It wasn't as good as that one, but it was the fact that CM Punk during that time, from May till August, had mainstream buzz about professional wrestling. The fact that he showed up unannounced at Comic-Con San Diego, and there were, when I say legions of people following him, legions of people following him as this modicum of a people's champion. You would have thought Jesus came back the way he was at Comic-Con. It was just the build up to the match in which it made professional wrestling this thing that people kind of remember now again, right? Because keep in mind, we had that Attitude Era and we had the Aggression Era, and the Aggression Era will never be good as the Attitude Era, never popular. But we had that lull in the early 2000s and late 2000s, like 2007 to 2010, we were kind of, or 2011, we kind of had a little lull, right?
Right.
And this was the shot in the arm it needed to make, make wrestling mainstream. And this was, I think, the first match where people actually paid attention to it, because CM Punk, the summer of Punk was just nuts. I mean, the shows on Jimmy Fallon's, the the Comic Con pop ups and all. It was just made it seem like you didn't know where he was popping up, and it had ESPN writers literally writing articles about professional wrestling, which was something I thought would have never happened in a million years. So yeah, number one, CM Punk, John Cena, 2011 SummerSlam, in which Alberto Del Rio cashed in and fucked up that night. Man, I'm just telling you. Like, I'm left heated on some nights, man. I'm just telling you, wrestling be doing that to you. You pay to leave mad as fuck. Like, shit. But fuck it.
Scooter?
All right. I would be remiss if I said I would cut off. My cutoff would be 1997. Uh, so I didn't include anything from WrestleMania 10, WrestleMania 11, and I decided to keep out WrestleMania 14 as well. But I would be remiss if I didn't include the biggest WrestleMania experience of my entire life, and that is WrestleMania 20. And the match that stands out, there are tons of matches that stood out for right reasons and wrong reasons. But I am giving it to both Eddie Guerrero and Kurt Angle and the triple threat between Benoit, Triple H, and HBK. Simply for the fact that the scene you had in the ring with Guerrero, Benoit, the confetti coming down, both of them having the world titles. You know, the two men that WCW misused so egregiously now were on top of the world. They both had tears in their eyes, and I will not lie, there were tears in my eyes. There were tears in a lot of people's eyes around me. Because this was just such an unbelievable moment to revel in. And it didn't matter that the person sitting next to you was a stranger. Hell, if they were a fan, you know what? You high-fived, you shook hands, you hugged, you chest bumped, you fist bumped, you did it all. Because that's how much adrenaline was flowing through that audience, that crowd that night. An absolutely unbelievable WrestleMania experience that I'm not sure I will ever experience again. And it's one of the main reasons I haven't been to a WrestleMania since.
I mean, I will say WrestleMania 30 when Daniel Bryan won it, it was like fucking phenomenal. I think the two best WrestleManias I've been to where the ending was super awesome was Seth Rollins' cash in and Daniel Bryan winning. And those were just crazy because everybody just stayed. I mean, the show was over. The wrestlers had left, and everybody was still in the stands.
I mean, because parking
just savoring that moment. You know what?
Because parking was such a bitch.
I mean, yeah, but also I'm just saying. Well, I don't know about me. Parking was that bad for me, but for 30 though, man, it was just bananas. But I do get your sentiment though.
Yeah. I felt pretty good about when Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn won the tag team championships.
Oh yes, 39. That was the other one.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I see so many honorable men. That one too was another one where everyone was like, Yo, as a matter of fact, I still remember I was right behind a chick and she was crying before the match even started. And I was like, what are you, like, I just like asked her what she was crying for. She was like, I'm just happy that the Usos got this because they deserve this.
Oh yeah,
And I was like, oh shit.
definitely. When you saw the Usos for the first time, you definitely didn't think they were going to main event WrestleMania, especially as a tag team. All right.
Right.
Um, some great matches, some great events. Definitely. Like Scooter said, like Kaliko said, there could have been so many other matches we've picked. There's definitely, it's tough to go down that rabbit hole sometimes. Um, in Kaliko's a sense, damn near impossible to you know get it down to 10. But we all did, and this was a lot of fun. Um, that will conclude our top 10 list. Thank you for listening. If you like what we're doing, please like, subscribe, comment, but on YouTube and Castbox. This is sponsored by Rogue Energy and Player One Coffee. Join us this Tuesday and Wednesday for new incredible interviews. Follow the show at Wrestling with E, but on X, Reddit, and Instagram for information on who we're interviewing, when we're interviewing them, links to those interviews, and so much more. Follow me personally at JamesJ993. Where can we find Kaliko?
I'm Kaliko, but I'm still stuck in the rabbit hole because I so forgot about 40, 39, 38. I was like, God damn, it's so many. It's too many today.
And where can we find Scooter?
As always, you can find me on X at Scooter Dust, and in case anybody would like to buy me a sandwich, throw some money into my cup.
For Kaliko Yachts and Scooter Dust, I'm James J, and this has been Wrestling with Entertainment.
Hey, folks, this is the Colossal Mike Law, and you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment. Enjoy the show. Support these guys. We appreciate it very much. We'll see you at ringside.